The scream cut through the hallway like glass shattering in the cold. Even from halfway down the corridor, Daniel felt it before he heard it. A terrified, choked plea that didn't belong in a school filled with children. He dropped the stack of textbooks he was carrying and ran toward the sound, his boots thudding against the worn linoleum floors. As he turned the corner, he froze for a heartbeat. A girl, small, thin, trembling, was pressed against the lockers by a tall teenage boy whose sneer showed he had never been afraid of anything in his life. Daniel saw her eyes first, wide and wet like the world had never shown her mercy. And in that moment, with the smell of old paint and chalk dust hanging in the air, Daniel Davis, struggling single father, overworked assistant custodian, and a man who often felt invisible, stepped forward like someone who still believed in right and wrong. He didn't know her name, he didn't know her story, he just knew pain when he saw it because he lived with his own every day. And so, with a voice he didn't even recognize as his own, he called out, shaking but firm, and told the bully to stop. He had no idea that the girl he was protecting would one day grow into a tech billionaire whose decisions reshaped industries. No idea that this moment, this single act of kindness in a dim school hallway, would come back to him years later in ways he couldn't imagine. If you believe the world needs more kindness, courage, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps bring more stories like this to life. Daniel never intended to be a hero. He was a man surviving on what little life handed him. A small apartment with flickering lights, a daughter named Lily who deserved better, and a job pieced together from early morning cleaning shifts and late afternoon cafeteria help. His wife had passed away when Lily was only 2. A sudden illness that stole both a partner and a sense of stability from his world. Since then, every day felt like climbing a steep hill with no breath left. But even weighed down by grief and exhaustion, Daniel held tightly to one belief: no child should feel the pain he had carried alone for so long. No child should feel small. When he stepped between the boy and the girl that day, he looked the bully in the eyes. The boy, shocked that a janitor would interfere, spat something cruel and shoved past him. When he was gone, the girl flinched, expecting Daniel to question her or lecture her, but he didn't. He only knelt down slowly, making himself smaller, not wanting to startle her. She didn't give him her name. She wiped her tears with trembling fingers and whispered a quiet thank you before walking away with hurried steps, almost gliding like someone desperate to escape the memory. Daniel watched her go, wondering what kind of pain she carried. She was always alone at school, always with books hugged tightly to her chest, always navigating hallways with a quietness that felt too heavy for her age. Days turned into weeks, and though Daniel rarely saw her again, he noticed the subtle changes. The way teachers spoke about her intelligence, the way she spent lunch reading about robotics in the corner of the library, the way she disappeared before anyone could hurt her again. Daniel wanted to help her more, but he had his own life to manage. Lily needed new shoes. Rent was overdue. His old truck coughed more smoke than it started. Still, when he walked through the halls and the scent of disinfectant lingered, he often wondered how that quiet girl was doing, and whether someone at home cared enough to ask her the same question. Life for Daniel remained unforgiving. His supervisor constantly reminded him of every minor mistake: a streak on a window, a mop bucket not stored properly, a missed piece of paper under a cafeteria table. He tried to hold it together, but grief had aged him. Nights were harder, filled with memories of his late wife and fears about Lily's future. Sometimes he sat on the apartment balcony with a thinning blanket wrapped around him and whispered into the dark that he wished he could give her more. Still, every morning he packed her lunch with shaky hands, brushed her hair, and sent her out the door with a smile she didn't yet know was fragile. Years passed. The bullied girl grew into someone nobody could have predicted. Her name was Ava Sterling, a name that would one day flash across worldwide headlines. She built apps in high school, started coding businesses in college, and launched a revolutionary artificial intelligence platform in her mid-20s. Investors called her a genius. Competitors feared her vision. Journalists described her as the billionaire prodigy of the decade. But behind the sharp intelligence and global success, Ava carried invisible scars. She remembered the lockers. She remembered the fear. She remembered the boy who tried to crush her spirit. And most of all, she remembered a man, a single dad janitor, who stood between her and cruelty when she was too young to defend herself. Daniel never knew. While Ava rose to fame, Daniel still fought unseen battles. Lily became a teenager with dreams bigger than their tiny apartment could contain. Tuition, bills, medical costs that never quite stopped. Everything closed in. Sometimes Daniel wondered if he was failing her. The school eventually replaced him with automated cleaning tech, leaving him jobless with a severance barely enough for groceries. He took temporary work at a warehouse, but the nights were long, the pay small, and his joints ached with every shift. There were moments when he sat alone in the car, staring through a cracked windshield, wishing for just one break. One moment of mercy. One miracle. It came on a morning he least expected. A massive technology conference was being hosted in the city, and the company Daniel worked for assigned him to set up seating, wires, and equipment in the main auditorium. He arrived tired, a thermos of cheap coffee warming his hands, and focused on the tasks with the quiet patience of someone who had worked his whole life without recognition. As he set up the stage wiring, he heard a familiar voice, firm, steady, and speaking with the confidence of someone who had learned to never shrink again. He looked up at the large digital screen showing the keynote speaker's image. Ava Sterling. Daniel didn't recognize her at first. Her features were refined by adulthood, her posture tall, her eyes sharp with determination, yet in the curve of her mouth and the distant softness in her gaze, he saw a shadow of the frightened girl pressed against lockers years ago. His heart skipped. Could it really be her? She had become a global powerhouse, a billionaire CEO leading groundbreaking tech innovations, while he remained unseen, his life worn and stretched thin by responsibilities he never asked for. Ava was reviewing stage notes when she noticed him. Her steps faltered, her breath caught. For a second, her confident exterior cracked like a window touched by frost. She walked closer, studying his face, the tired lines, the salt and pepper hair, the eyes that held both exhaustion and kindness. Time tugged them backward, to the walls where she once felt small, to the moment he stepped forward when no one else did. Daniel didn't expect her to remember. But she did, with a clarity that shook her. When the crowd entered for the keynote, Ava stopped everything. She signaled to her team, then strode directly toward him. Cameras flashed, journalists whispered, employees stared, confused. Daniel instinctively stepped back, thinking he was in the way. But Ava reached him with a look of gratitude so deep it made his chest tighten. What followed wasn't dramatic. It wasn't something fueled by spotlight or publicity. It was a human moment. A quiet conversation with her standing close, speaking softly, thanking him for something he considered small but she considered life-changing. She told him he had protected not just a child, but a future, a dream, a spark that might have been extinguished had fear taken over. Daniel felt overwhelmed, his throat thick, unsure how to respond. He didn't see himself as special. He was just a dad trying to do what little good he could. Ava didn't leave him with just thank yous. She offered him a job, not as charity, but as recognition. A position in her company's facilities and logistics department, with a salary that could finally lift him and Lily out of the struggle that had defined their lives. She saw his dedication, his character, his work ethic, qualities her company valued deeply. She also privately arranged a scholarship fund for Lily, ensuring the girl who kept her father's hope alive would never have to sacrifice her dreams for money. Ava never announced these things publicly. She never turned them into headlines. It was gratitude, not PR. Daniel accepted with tears he couldn't hide. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of survival loosen from his shoulders. His first paycheck with Ava's company felt unreal. Enough to pay overdue bills, buy Lily the laptop she needed, fix the leaking ceiling in their apartment, and even let them go out for dinner without counting every dollar. Lily watched him smile more. He slept better, breathed easier, and walked through life with something unfamiliar: dignity. Months later, at the company's annual celebration, Ava shared a story with her employees. She didn't name him directly, but she spoke about the janitor who once protected a small girl in a school hallway and how acts of quiet courage shape destinies. People listened with watery eyes, sensing the depth behind her words. Daniel stood at the back, humbled, softened, knowing now that sometimes the smallest kindnesses are the ones that echo the loudest. Life didn't magically become perfect, but it became brighter. Daniel found purpose. Lily flourished. Ava continued to rise, guided not just by brilliance, but by gratitude rooted in a painful past finally transformed. In the end, Daniel never expected recognition or repayment. All he wanted was to make the world a little kinder for someone else. But life, in its rare moments of grace, gave back more than he had ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more people find these stories and reminds the world that kindness still matters. Before the story ends, let us know in the comments. Do you believe a small act of kindness can change someone's entire life? And so, the struggling single dad who once felt invisible discovered that even the quietest courage can leave footprints across someone else's future. Footprints that can lead all the way to the doors of a billionaire who never forgot the man who stood up for her when she had no one else.